Chapter 14 of Married Thrice to Salted Fish. After Lin Chingyu got half of the power in the household, people came to him in a steady stream every day. The story of Shao Jun poisoning people spread throughout the mansion. Everyone got to understand what femme fatale was, and they looked at Shao Jun with awe. From matters as big as dispensing the mansion's monthly allowance to matters as small as what kind of flowers to be planted in the yard, no one dared to make any arbitrary decision at all. Lin Chingyu was pestered beyond endurance. He had never been interested in the general affairs of the mansion. Small things like what flowers to grow and what snacks to prepare in each room he left to Pan Shi to decide upon. As for other important matters, it would be best if he could maintain a hold over those. Lin Chingyu found a certain someone lying on a rocking chair with his eyes closed, listening to the rain. He instructed, "Find me a few trustworthy stewards to help manage the household." Lu Wancheng opened his eyes and teased, "Oh, I seem to remember that you used to be quite averse to this kind of approach. You can't always rely on others for everything. Then, when you're too lazy to eat, to sleep, or to marry a wife and make children, will you also have someone deal with it for you?" Lin Chingyu paused and calmly said, "That was one situation, and this is quite another." Lu Wancheng smiled and said, "This matter is easy to handle. I will just write another letter to my grandfather." Lin Chingyu nodded. "All right, go write it." "Then help me grind the ink." Lu Wancheng had just said it jokingly and offhandedly, thinking that he would be ruthlessly rejected by Lin Chingyu once again. Unexpectedly, Lin Chingyu merely hesitated for a moment, then said, "All right." Lu Wancheng was immediately overwhelmed by having been bestowed with this favor. In the study room, Lu Wancheng stood in front of the window railing, holding a pen in his hand. Lin Chingyu stood quietly on one side, personally grinding the ink for him. The ink gave off a dense fragrance, but Lu Wancheng could still make out of the light medicinal fragrance on Lin Chingyu's body. He couldn't help wondering when his sense of smell became so good. It was spring and rain was plentiful. Though it had been raining for several days already, it still showed no signs of stopping. Outside the window, the spring rain drizzled, natural and fascinating, like intertwined ties of love. Lu Wancheng wrote very slowly. It seemed that he didn't write often, but his brushwork was excellent. Letters were private things, and Lin Chingyu didn't read it deliberately, but did catch sight of it inadvertently. They say that who a person is reflected in their calligraphy. Lu Wancheng's words were energetic, like moving clouds and flowing water, free, easy, and smooth. It was hard to imagine that they came from the hands of someone chronically ill. After writing a few words, Lu Wancheng was struck with a bout of laziness. "Ah, my hands are sore. I'm so tired." Lin Chingyu said, "You can sit down and write." "That won't work. If you write while sitting down, it won't come out smooth and elegant at all." Lin Chingyu, ... Huan Tong came in to deliver snacks and was met with the sight of young Master Hao writing while his own family's young master acted as red sleeves adding fragrance. It gave him quite the shock, and it took some time to remember what he was doing there. "Young master, the kitchens have delivered plum cakes." Lin Chingyu said, "You can just set it down there." Huan Tong put the plum cakes on the table. When he saw Lu Wancheng's writing, he said in surprise, "Young Master Hao is so lazy, but his handwriting is actually so beautiful." Lu Wancheng said modestly, you flatter me, you flatter me. It's nothing exceptional." Lin Chingyu said slowly, Looking at your handwriting, it seems that you have meticulously practiced it. That's right. Practicing one's calligraphy is not something done in a day. Lu Wancheng's calligraphy must have been practiced for at least several years. Lin Qingyu couldn't help but question. If you're already complaining of a sore hand after just writing a few words, how could you have possibly practiced writing for leisure? Oh, obviously, I was forced. I was too active as a child. Mom heard that practicing calligraphy could bring calm, so she paid handsomely for calligraphy tutors to teach me how to write and read ancient Chinese. Lu Wancheng lowered his eyes, his expression a mixture of reminiscence and pain. Mom was eager to be the best in everything. It wasn't enough for her that she be first. She demanded that I too be a master of the four arts. I had to get first place in everything. It was so pitiful at the same time. If it wasn't one class, it was another. I couldn't even get enough sleep. Ah, so it was his mom. I... Huan Tong said sympathetically. Young Master Hao must have been so miserable. You're already so sick, but you were tossed around like that? Even us servants have it better. Lin Qingyu was indifferent. He's talking nonsense. Huan Tong's eyes widened. Huh? When did you ever hear him call Liang Shi mom? Huan Tong scratched his head. Ah, that's right. Lu Wancheng didn't refute. He smiled and said, Ah, I found out. Halfway through the letter, there was a sentence for which Lu Wancheng was unsure of the grammar, and so he stopped writing and pondered. He pondered and pondered until his thoughts started to stray. His eyes gradually slackened, and even the way he held the brush changed. But despite the careless way he held the brush, the burst of power, he wrapped his fingers around the brush and finished it from beginning to end all in one go. In an instant, brush and ink flew widely. The master servant pair who were standing beside him received some damage. Lin Qingyu got off relatively easy, suffering only a few ink stains. It was Huan Tong who suffered more with a streak of ink marring half of his face. Moreover, because he'd been caught in surprise, he had his mouth open and unfortunately got to have a taste of ink. Once he came back to his senses, he immediately Lu Wancheng realized his mistake and quickly put down the brush, apologizing to them both. I'm sorry, for a moment there, I forgot that this is a brush dipped in ink. Lin Qingyu said, devoid of expression. Can you act like a normal person? Lu Wancheng felt a little like laughing, but doing so at this time would really be too unkind. He held back a smile and said, It really wasn't intentional. Here, let me wipe it for you, he said, raising his hand. Those few ink stains happened to fall under Lin Qingyu's eyes, mixed with his tear-shaped mole. Just as Lu Wancheng reached out, Lin Qingyu blinked. Long eyelashes, like butterfly wings, brushed lightly over Lu Wancheng's fingertips, slightly ticklish and soft. Lu Wancheng's hand paused. He actually froze, and even his breathing stagnated. Lin Qingyu didn't notice his strange actions. He pushed his hand away and said in a cool tone, Are hands what you use to wipe away ink stains? Oh, yes. Lu Wancheng recovered his senses. He turned and ordered, Huan Tong, get a kerchief and wipe it for your young master. Huan Tong argued, I haven't gotten all the ink out of my mouth yet. Hua Lu brought over some warm water, and Lin Qingyu used a wet handkerchief to wipe his face. At this time, Pan Shi's personal maid, Han Xiao, came to Lin Qingyu and said, Xiaojun, Our Yin Yang requests that you go to the front hall. Lin Qingyu said. I see. Panshi was a woman and he was a man. Distinction was made between them. Although they shared the running of the household, they rarely met each other and would simply let the servants deliver messages. Panshi's sudden invitation meant that there was something that needed to be discussed in person. Lin Qingyu said to Lu Wancheng, I'm going out for a bit. You should finish writing that letter and send someone to Gao Gong Mansion as soon as possible. Lu Wancheng absent-mindedly agreed. Going back to the window, he looked as Lin Qingyu opened an umbrella under the curtain of rain. He looked down at his fingertips, chuckled, and said to himself, What the hell? Oh, it's his awakening. It's not too far off. Panshi had also been a lady of an official family. It was a pity that her family had suffered a reversal of fortune. In order to make a living, she has to submit to being a concubine. Her family had little power and she had borne no sons. That she was able to receive favor from Nanan Hao was not only because of her appearance, but more so because of her quiet temperament. She didn't fight or contend, and she never talked indiscreetly in front of Nanan Hao. The things in court were already disturbing enough. When Nanan Hao returned to the mansion, he just wanted to have a bit of peace, and Panshi was undoubtedly the best place to go. In order to avoid suspicion, Lin Qingyu and Panshi brought a lot of servants with them whenever they met, and this time was no different. Lin Qingyu had never liked the people in the Nanan Hao mansion, but because of the wedding gift Panshi had given him and Lu Wancheng, and also because of the medicinal plasters she had given when he got a sprain, he did not loathe this person. He was simply indifferent. Lin Qingyu patiently exchanged a few polite words with her and said, If Yin Yang has anything important, you can just say it directly. Panshi nodded and said, It will be Qingming in a few days. The Lu family's hometown is in Linan, and the presentation of offerings is all handled by the Lu clan's branch family. To show filial piety, Master Hao keeps 2 ever-burning altar lamps for his parents in Changsheng Temple in the outskirts of the capital. In the past, during this time, Master Hao's wife would go to Changsheng Temple to pray for the ancestors' blessing and protection. However, Madam is still yet to recuperate from her illness, and Master Hao Pan stopped and said nothing more. Since Chen Gufei's birthday, Langshi has rarely appeared in front of others. They say she is in recuperation, but she was actually being confined. Nanan Hao has always been in a high position. He was proud and arrogant and couldn't bear the shame of being the target of deception by her schemes. Langshi's fault could not be called small, but neither could be called big. However, since she violated Nanan Hao's taboo, she was naturally made to suffer a lot of hardships. Lin Qingyu said, This being the case, I will have to trouble Yin Yang to pray for our blessings. Pan shook her head and said, I'm just a concubine. I'm just a concubine. I cannot take the madam's place to light the incense. You are the Hao Mansion's officially wedded Shaojin. Except for the madam, only you can go. Lin Qingyu declined to comment. If they had him go and light incense for the ancestors of the Lu family, he might just directly extinguish the ever-burning lamps that Nanan Hao has kept burning for more than 10 years. However, it would be nice if he could take this opportunity to visit the Changshan temple and pray for his family. Lin Qingyu said, "Alright, I will arrange it." Pan Shi said, "The road has been made slippery by the rain. Young master can wait for the rain to stop before heading out." Lin Qingyu nodded and took his leave. Pan Shi watched him leave and then suddenly said, "Shaojun, please wait." Lin Qingyu asked, "Is there anything else?" Pan walked forward and bowed to Lin Qingyu, saying, "10 years ago, I had yet to enter the mansion and I lived with my mother. We made a living by washing and weaving. That winter had been bitterly cold, and my mother had caught a bad cold. It wouldn't heal even after many days, and she was dying. However, with but 4 bare walls for a house, we couldn't afford to pay for medical treatment and medicine. I took a few copper coins and begged for medicine at the ever bright and harmonious drugstore, but was harassed by a passing lecturer. At that time, Lin Panyan was there selecting medicinal herbs. Fortunately, he came to my rescue. Lin Panyan not only followed me to see my mother at home, but also paid for the medicine for us. He is our lifesaver." Panshi was also choked with sobs by the time she finished. Lin Qingyu smiled faintly and said, "This was indeed something my father would have done." Panshi turned to the side and wiped her tears. She said in embarrassment, "I have let Shaojun see something embarrassing. I just want to say, if Shaojun has any need of me in the future, I will do my best to help Shaojun in return for this life-saving grace." Lin Qingyu's slightly cold voice warmed up a bit. "Yin Yang is too polite." Back to the Blue Wind Pavilion, Lin Qingyu ordered people to prepare for the Qingming trip, but the rain still showed no signs of stopping. With the weather not having cleared up for a long time, the house became damp. Stepping outside, you were met with rain everywhere. The people's moods were also inexplicably low. Lu Wancheng was depressed for a few days. When Lin Qingyu asked him what was wrong, he didn't say anything and just kept sighing. Having asked once and not getting an answer, Lin Qingyu didn't bother asking again and simply let him do what he wanted. On this day, Lu Wancheng was once again dazed in bed. Hua Lu bought his medicine. When she called him to take it, he didn't respond, looking as though he had nothing left to live for. Hua Lu turned to Lin Qingyu for help. "Shaojun, this..." Lin Qingyu said, I will do it. You can go." After Hua Lu left, Lin Qingyu walked to the bed. Towering over Lu Wancheng, he said, "What's the matter with you?" Lu Wancheng, ... Lin Qingyu showed his displeasure and threatened, "If you won't say anything, I'm going to have Huan Tong take away your quilt every day at the break of dawn." Lu Wancheng choked. "I'm already like this. Can't you be a little sympathetic?" "Like what?" Lu Wancheng hid his face with his hands and said in agony, It seems like I'm no good anymore." Lin Qingyu, "What? What do you mean by no good?" It seemed that Lu Wancheng found it hard to speak about it. "That there is no good in the past, every morning, as long as I wake up, you know." Lin Qingyu, ... Lu Wancheng looked down at his waist, incomparably distressed. "These past few days, it just won't get up." Lin Qingyu said, "Oh, that's normal." Okay, it took me a while to realize what he was talking, but I thought it was gay awakening, but it's not. It was suppression of something. Lu Wancheng suddenly raised his head. "Normal?" In order to improve the prescription, I added a lot of Pureria labota, pseudo ginseng type herb, to your medicine. Lynching you downplayed it. He sounded like he was talking about what they were having for dinner tonight. Long term use of such drugs will cause some effects on man. You don't use it anyway. You shouldn't care about that. Don't use it? Shouldn't care? Lu Wancheng almost spewed out a mouthful of blood. For a while, he didn't know how to refute such rebellious words. If he got angry with lynching you, he might provoke him into anger and he will still have to coax him later. Maybe he could reason things out, but as everyone knows, a great beauty would never reason things out with a mere mortal. Oh gosh, he's so down bad. Okay, okay. Lu Wancheng held back for a while before he said, I have no use for it, but whether I use it or not is not the same as whether I can use it or not. Lynching you beg to differ. This is a matter of life and death. Can you pack away your useless ego? Living half a year more is more important than anything. Lu Wancheng was in his death throes. But, Lin Chingye said impatiently, no buts, young Master Hao. As a patient, the only thing you have to do is follow the doctor's advice. Drink your medicine. Lu Wancheng looked down at the dark decoction. He wanted to say something but stopped. Wanted to say something but stopped. Oh, sorry, that repeated. Finally, he gave Lin Chingyu a thumbs up and something Lin Chingyu couldn't understand popped out of the mouth. So badass. He's using the modern slang. Okay. I apologize. It's the next day, and every day it's like I have to freaking reset on how I talk. So, yeah.